Why, hello. It's still lockdown, it's still April, and in April I read 17 books. According to my Goodreads challenge, quite a few for the Owls, the ordinary wizarding levels, and some just because I wanted to, so I'm going to go through and give sort of some little reviews of what I thought of them. So I'll start with the physical books first of all. Ooh. So the first one is this. It's Woven into the Earth by Elsie Ostgaard, and it's about textile finds in a graveyard in Greenland from the Viking period. Very interesting, a lot on the weaves, the textiles, the cuts, things like that. It's also just a really nice book. Seeing the maps and the end papers and things like that, and it even feels like parchment. So I managed to get this one for quite a discount because when I'd seen it before, it was always like £40 odd. And I was like, oh, I want it, but I don't really want to pay that much. So I finally managed to get it for 15, which I thought was awesome. And I'm definitely using it to look at a possible medieval sort of cartel project for the autumn. Got some other things lined up first of all, but I know Morgan Donner used this book to sort of draft a pattern for her medieval outfit, so that's why I wanted to read this. But obviously it's just really interesting in and of itself if you like history, or you like clothes, or you like the history of clothes. And then some more non-fiction. I read Forest of Kings, The Untold Story of the Ancient Maya by Linda, Schele and David Friedel. I really liked this. It's mainly Maya history told through the history of their kings and about where we get that history from. So a lot about the ruins and the Maya glyphs, and it's really interesting. It gives you some really good breakdowns of like the Maya art and how they've managed to translate things and how that fits in with mythology and what they found, and also, you know, talking about Maya society as seen through this, and making a good point as well that a lot of what we know about the Maya is based on their royalty, because unfortunately they did write a lot of books, but they do not survive because they were destroyed by the Spanish. So I think there's like 4 extant Maya texts that are left. They're written on bark. One's in Dresden, but I don't know where the others are. I bet you there's one in Mexico. But really interesting book. Slightly maybe out of date. I mean, this is an older edition. It is a textbook, do you know what I mean? But it's really hard to find like actual books on Maya history in English. Copyright 1990. Yeah, so it's a bit of an older one. If anyone knows of any good Maya books, then please do let me know, because I would love to read them. I am totally obsessed with the Maya just now, and I think they deserve every bit as much of a scholarly sort of or book-based oeuvre as like the ancient Egyptians. I mean, some of it was at roughly similar times. So yeah, I recommend it if you're interested in the Maya. Is it a great book on its own? Not as much, but there aren't really that many great books about the Maya that I can find anyway. So like I say, if you want to let me know about any, please do. And then I read Nocturna by Maya and Tanya. I did a full review of this one, which I will link in the cards. But needless to say, I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. So then a middle grade that I read, City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab. And this is about a girl called Cass, who her parents are ghost hunters and she can actually see ghosts. And one of the reasons I wanted to pick this up was because it is actually set in Edinburgh, and there's a part of the book that's set somewhere called Mary King's Close, where me and my mum were actually there in March, and it is very spooky in Mary King's Close, so it was very interesting, and it's always fun to sort of see a city that you know quite well represented in a book. Cass is a really great character, the supporting characters are great, and I've already picked up Tunnel of Bones to read, so I will be picking that one up. So this was my second V.E. Schwab book, and I really enjoyed it. Now, this one was for one of my ordinary wizarding levels, and it's Heist of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. And this one is a standalone, and it's a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses set in a sort of fantasy world. It was creepy. The characters were fine. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. Not something that I'll hang on to or read again, but it was worth having a look at. But I'll probably donate this one as soon as the charity shops and everything open up again, and someone else can. I might donate that one to the library actually, because they don't have a great YA section in my local library. And then I also read Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. This was great. I really loved this. I loved the romance in it. I loved the world building. It's about a girl called Mare, and she's been brought up in her father's house. He's the governor of like a province, and her mother was a member of a sort of tribe that aren't really looked well upon in the empire, and her mum sort of left her and her younger sister to be brought up by their dad because she thought that they would be safer there. But she isn't, and eventually she gets roped into an arranged marriage, and things go on from there. I love an arranged marriage, and this one was really good. If you like The Wrath and the Dawn, I think you'll really like this, and I just really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and I've already got the sequel on my TBR for May. Now, a couple bits of physical non-fiction. I finished The Witches, Salem 1692, A History by Stacey Schiff. Oh my god, see if I rolled my eyes one more time during this book, and not because it's badly written, it's really well written. It was the people in this book. I honestly wanted to reach back like the 400 and odd years and just slap them. Honestly, like, you're just like, and then it was really funny because I was like, how can people be so stupid? And then I was like, there's people denying that COVID-19 exists. So have we changed that much? Probably not. But really great history of the Salem witch trials and how things sort of started off, how they spiralled out of control, and how they came to an end as well. Like the blurb says in the back, you know, was it like the Crucible? No, it was worse. Context is everything. And in this case it is. And as you're talking about, you're reading it, and it's like every woman in a family would be like arrested for witchcraft, down to like the 7-year-old children. And it's just, oh my god, it was, I had to take a break, and sort of, I left a couple of weeks in between because I was just getting so annoyed at the people in this book. But if you're interested in Salem witch trials, I think that's probably the best sort of history you're going to find. And I also read Ice Ghosts, The Epic Hunt for the Lost Franklin Expedition by Paul Watson. And this won the Pulitzer Prize, I believe, the year it was published. And if I've mentioned before on the channel that I have been very interested in the Arctic exploration, most specifically the expedition of Franklin in 1845, where they lost 2 ships, Erebus and Terror, and 130 sailors. And none of them were ever found alive, and it was only in the past 4 or 5 years that they actually found the wrecks of Terror and Erebus, because they weren't listening to the local sort of Inuit populations and racism, you know. It also talks about a lot in depth about the original missions to go and look for HMS Terror and Erebus, mainly pushed on by Lady Jane Franklin, who I did not know a whole lot about before I read this book. And when I read this, I was like, wow, she was, what a woman. She was determined. She was getting, you know, what she needed done, and she was so devoted to her husband, who just seems like a bit of a wet blanket, basically. But hey, so it's really good if you're looking for a good history of the search for Terror and Erebus. Not so much the actual voyages themselves, but the aftermath of it and the attitudes towards the search parties. It's really good. I'm obsessed with Terror and Erebus right now. So let's talk about non-physical books, i.e. books that I read on my oldie Kindle. So I read Miraculum by Steph Post, which is set in the American Dust Bowl, and it was about a woman who she was a snake charmer in the circus, and about the sort of trickster that shows up and causes a lot of trouble in the circus. It really did remind me of Carnival. I picked it up on another booktuber's recommendation. Her name's Chelsea, and Chelsea Palmer, I believe, and she recommended it. She said it was like Carnival, and I love Carnival, so I picked it up, and I did really enjoy this, and I gave this 4 stars. I liked the characters, I liked the ending, I wish there was more, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like there will be. And then I read Jungle of Stone. Let me see who the author of that one was, by William Carlson, and that was about Stevens and Catherwood's expeditions to South America to look for Mayan ruins. Very interesting, also a bit frustrating in places because, you know, if you're interested in archaeology now, you're like, that's not good archaeology, guys. You're kind of shitting in bed, but, you know, what can... So it was interesting, and it was good to sort of hear about the journeys that they made. But as ever, when you've been involved in anything anthropology or archaeology in the sort of modern day, you do find reading things like that a bit dodge, because you're thinking, they weren't really lost, were they? They weren't really lost. They were misplaced by white people, but they weren't really lost. So it was a really good book. I liked it. I'm obsessed with the Maya at the moment, so. And then I read Underworld London by Katherine Arnold. Katherine Arnold's written some really good books on London, and this one was about crime and punishment, and went into a lot of detail about like the hanging fields at Tyburn, about Newgate Prison, some of London's more notorious crimes and criminals, and also about sort of crusading reform movements and things like that as well. And you think, wow, I'm so glad that I didn't live then, because it sounds dirty and awful. So yeah, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, I wish I could have lived in Victorian times. No, I don't want to live then. They had typhoid. So I then also, let's see, also history-wise, I read The Covent Garden Ladies by Hallie Rubinold. And this was a history of the Covent Garden Harris's List, which was a list published in Georgian Times of the various sex workers in the area, and publishing reviews on them. And this book basically went into history about how the list came to be, about some of the more sort of well-known people on the list and the area and things like that. It was really interesting, good history book, and it really sort of broke down the sort of attitudes towards the sex trade and stuff quite well at the time. And I forgot one. And yeah, I liked it, and I like Hallie Rubinold. She's written another book called The Five, which is about the 5 canonical victims of Jack the Ripper, but it's about the victims and about their lives rather than about Jack the Ripper, which I like, so I'm probably going to pick that up. And I also read Toilette, Perfumes and Makeup at the Medici Court, and that was like a little book that I read for my Owls for the Shrinking Potion book under her 150 pages. Very interesting, and also just interesting to see what people were doing at the time, you know, in terms of perfumes and makeup, and what the beauty standard was as well at the time. So really interesting, and it helped as well, I think, that I've been to Palazzo Pitti before, and I sort of understood the area and what they were talking about and a bit more of the history, so I had a bit more context. I think if you didn't have as much context, you would probably find it dull, but I liked it. And I also, on my e-reader, read Fortuna Sworn, and that's by KJ Sutton. Quite a few people read that last month. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It's about a woman called Fortuna Sworn, who is a type of fae, and she's looking for her kidnapped brother, and she ends up in the sort of dark, unseelie court. So it was pretty good. I'm going to read the sequel at some point. I gave it, I think, like 3.5 stars. So that was everything I read on the Kindle. I also read, I just realised I'd forgotten it, I read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This was really interesting because the magic system was based a lot on colours, which I've never really come across before. I enjoyed it. Will there probably be a sequel? Probably, because it's Brandon Sanderson. I gave it 4 stars. It was fine. And last but not least, I reread Maurice by E.M. Forster. This is my favourite of the classics aside from probably like Dracula. Maurice is about a man called Maurice who is a gay man, and it's set in late Victorian, early Edwardian period. And Maurice he's not very self-aware in the beginning of the book. He's quite like plodding along with his life. He's like, whatever. And then he meets a guy called Clive at university and falls in love with him, and they have a relationship. And things spiral on from there. And it's all about Maurice sort of waking up generally, and it calls it on the blurb, a journey of erotic and political self-discovery. And I love this. It's so sweet. I could pull about 1 million quotes from it, but I won't. And I think the thing that really gets me the most is E.M. Forster wrote it so that he could enjoy a happy ending for a man like him. And he ordered it not to be published until after he died because he didn't think people would accept the fact that there was a happy ending and there was no tragedy. If you've come across other sort of books of the time like Tillaney or Radcliffe Hall or anything like that, you'll know that a happy ending wasn't normal at that point. They wouldn't accept a gay character unless there was a tragedy. And Ian Forster knew that, so he wrote Maurice, and I love it. I will read it again. I've had this edition for quite a long time. I also recommend the Merchant Ivory adaptation, which has got James Wilby, Rupert Graves and Hugh Grant in it. It's really lovely, really, if you like Merchant Ivory anyway, you'll probably like it, but it's really lovely and I cry every time because poor Maurice. But that is, I think, everything that I read in April. I did read quite a lot, more than I thought, and we'll see about me. As I say, April was a month of ups and downs, but we'll get there. So I'll also be posting this about the same time as my TBR, and I'll be watching everyone else's wrap-ups as well to see how they did in their roles and how they got on in the month. So yeah, that's it. Take care. Bye.